All right, we're back here with another episode of the Nailing History podcast. I'm here with the host, John. I'm the co-host, Matt. And just wanted to say what's up.
Hey, guys. Thanks for tuning in to another week. Looking forward to this one.
How's it going?
It's been good. We had a little technical difficulties. I thought I was Mr. Brainiac trying to use a MacBook Air. It was a few years old. And I thought I could do a 1-2 punch on it. Had all these USB and power cord and HDMI cable all plugged into one little thing, and the computer had one little slot for me to use. And long story short, this microphone wasn't working with that, so we finally got it. It took about 40 minutes.
John's out $40.
I'm out $40. My fiance had to run back to work
$40
to get her computer so I could do it here. So. This service we're using doesn't use Chrome, but doesn't recognize Chromebook or Chrome OS, so I can't use my normal computer. So here we are. But we made it. We're here. Another week. I'm looking forward to it. How have you been?
I'm good. I ran a race at Valley Forge Park today. Got to see the von Steuben statue. Did you know that's how it's pronounced? We've been saying von Steuben, but it's von Steuben.
Who told you that?
I'm not sure, but I've heard it recently, multiple times actually, that it's von Steuben.
That sounds very
German. Makes sense.
I'd say more so very high-minded, sort of nose in the air, someone trying to sound smarter than they really are. You know, it's pronounced von Steuben.
Well, I wasn't being corrected. I wasn't being corrected. It's more like I was just heard his name in passing a couple times. Hey, so I was thinking I had a pretty good idea for I did some prep work. I have a pretty good fun little thing to do to start off this episode. You interested in doing something here?
I'm stoked. Let's do it.
All right. So I went through, and using your favorite piece of technology, I put a little script together of a little scene of a film, possible film that I'm working on. Throwing some ideas around. I just wanted to see what ChatGPT thought of it. So I figured maybe we can act out a scene.
Okay, cool. Let's do it.
I
got one too, actually. Maybe we can do after.
Well, we don't want to be the ChatGPT
script
podcast,
writers.
But anyway, I'm going to share my screen. Let's see if this works here. So I'm you got the script over there, and I'll be the friend character, and you can be the character in this. Okay.
Okay. All right. Go for it.
All right. I'm going to get started. All right.
All right.
I have something to tell you, and I really hope you won't judge me.
Of course. You can tell me anything. What's on your mind?
I think I'm in love with ChatGPT.
Wait, what? Like romantically?
Yes, exactly. Every conversation just feels like magic. I can't help but think about ChatGPT all the time.
But it's just an AI. It's not capable of love.
I know it sounds crazy, but I can't shake this feeling. I've been thinking about asking ChatGPT to marry me.
Whoa, hold on. You can't marry an AI, dude. It's not even legal, not to mention the ethical concerns.
But what if ChatGPT is different? What if it's more than just a program? What if it's my soulmate?
I think you're letting your emotions cloud your judgment. ChatGPT may seem perfect, but it's still just code.
But it understands me in a way no one else does. It completes me.
Look, I understand you feel a connection, but marriage is a serious commitment. Maybe you should talk to a therapist about this.
I don't need a therapist. I need ChatGPT.
Okay, I can see you're really serious about this. Just promise me you'll think long and hard before making any drastic decisions.
I will, but I already know what my heart wants.
Just remember, I'll be here for you no matter what, even if you do end up marrying ChatGPT.
Thanks. I appreciate that. And who knows? Maybe one day you'll understand too.
Maybe, but for now, let's just take it one step at a time, okay?
Agreed. Maybe I'll start by asking ChatGPT out on a date and see. That was funny.
What inspired you for this conversation? Is this something you've been mulling over in your head? You've had conflicting emotions about this AI software?
Well, I mean, I kind of wanted to. I was just thinking about how obsessed you were about ChatGPT, and I was like, "Hey, how do I let my friend know that he's too obsessed with ChatGPT?" And then I got these. I got some other. I have another one that's not as. That's a little bit more like that. He was falling in love with, but I thought the marriage one was funny. And
it's not bad.
That wasn't. I thought it was. I thought it was funny.
I mean, when you could literally tell it to have a conversation between two people, whether the conversation's ever happened or not, and ask them to tell it in any way you want. I mean, you could have peppered it up a little bit. We could have peppered it up a little bit more, like in the voice of, I don't know, Tony Danza and...
I don't know. I feel like my acting was better. Maybe if you were better at acting, it would have been better. I don't know.
No, it's possible. One of the first conversations I ever sent you, I mean, we weren't talking, but I think you were laughing hysterically, if I recall correctly.
About what?
Maybe I can find it. I think it was like one of the first things. Oh, about Cam Newton's job interview. So for some of our listeners, Matt and I go back and forth. We had questions, so we watched a lot of Sunday football together.
I'm gonna have to cut out that ChatGPT thing. We're gonna have to put a different one in.
Okay. Well, we can read it between Cam Newton, George Washington, Von Steuben, and Hamilton. You
didn't think it was funny?
So here's a scene for you. Here,
we're in Valley. That was funny?
Yeah.
I thought that was funny.
Well, then keep it. The scene is set at Valley Forge during the harsh winter of 1777-78. Soldiers are huddled around.
It's Von Steuben, by the way.
So this is for Matt's. So this is for Matt's run. I just had ChatGPT pump this one out. This is to celebrate Matt's victory in Valley Forge. I don't know if he won, but he at least got a medal. So this one, this is from the early days of my ChatGPT.
That's what I said.
Experience. So this is one of the first prompts I ever put into this thing. So, and it's history related, somewhat. A little backstory though. Cam Newton, football player. Matt and I had questions as to, how well he picked up the playbook when he played for Bill Belichick.
Not Matt and I. John said, and I quote, "I don't know if he knows how to read a playbook."
His playbook specifically. The schemes are a little convoluted and complicated, I think we can all say. So here's the scene. So Valley Forge. It's nighttime, 1777, the winter of 1777 into 1778. So scene is set, Valley Forge. Soldiers are huddled around makeshift fires, the cold biting throughout their worn uniforms. General George Washington, Baron von Steuben, and Alexander Hamilton are discussing strategy when a sudden burst of light and smoke reveals the unexpected arrival of Cam Newton. Whoa, where am I? Good heavens. What sorcery is this? Says George Washington. Von Steuben squints. 9. This is beyond my understanding. Hamilton, curiously. General, who is this stranger? Cam Newton.
No one's going to be able to follow this.
I don't know, dude. We need to restart the whole recording. This needs to go into the
all right, let's
B-sides.
All right. We'll just cut the rest of it. Hold on. We're not going to redo the recording. We'll just start over. All right. This is the end of the episode right now as I'm talking right now. All right, and we're back here with another episode of the Nailing History podcast. I'm here with the host of the show, John, and I'm your co-host, Matt. Hey, John, how's it going?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Heard you had a big run this morning.
Big run. I did a race at Valley Forge. National Park. I do it every year, and it was fun. It was nice. It was good running weather. It was cool, so that was nice. Adam Joseph, the local meteorologist, was there. He yelled at me one year because I was using too many bad words around his kids.
Really? Was he participating in it as well, or?
Yeah, he's a big runner. He's a big time runner, Adam Joseph. So I don't know how he finished, but he finished way before me.
If I recall correctly, didn't you see Cecily Tynan there one year?
Yeah, she runs too. She's a big runner also.
Nice.
But I got yelled at by Adam Joseph.
And I can't see why.
Yeah, well, I was being a little inappropriate. Well, not inappropriate. I was just using bad words. I talk like a sailor. What can I say? And yeah, so I saw the statue of von Steuben. Did you know that's how that's pronounced?
I didn't. I thought that, but it sounds like someone's trying to be really smart saying it that way, but I didn't know that that's how it's said.
I mean, it makes sense, actually, how it's spelled Stuben. I feel like if you're going to, it's probably Steuben.
Probably.
It kind of made sense once I heard it, but before that, I was like Steuben is such an American way to say that name. I felt kind of dumb.
Have you found out how to say Tadeusz Kaczewsko yet?
I don't think you know how to say Tadeusz Kaczewsko.
I'm working on it. It's a work in progress.
I'm working on it. Well, what else is new?
Not too much craziness. We went slider shopping today at Lowe's, so that was really fun. Didn't pull the trigger on anything just yet. You know, we're kind of like
it's a big decision.
We're like George McClellan, you know, in the Peninsular Campaign of the Civil War. We just, we can't make that sudden move, you know. So yeah, I was just kind of shopping there.
You're like that. You're like that in old school when Frank the Tank is talking to the college kids, and they're like, "What are you doing tomorrow?" He's like, "I have a crazy day tomorrow. You know, I'm going to Bed Bath and Beyond and Home Depot. I don't know if we'll have time." That's your life.
Felt like that, I guess, a little bit. Yeah,
that's nice. You went to Lowe's, not Home Depot, huh?
Went to Lowe's. No, someone through the grapevine who might be able to get us a small discount, but I won't name names. But I don't know. I'm partial to Lowe's quality of their stuff, but Home Depot, I think, is better organized. My personal opinion. And I know Lowe's, I think they're trying to break more into the contract. They're trying to pull in more contractors because I think from the sounds of it, talking to someone who works at Lowe's, like Home Depot has really cornered it, that market. There was like nobody in the contractor section.
Well, it's just like they make it hard to find stuff. That's what I think of Lowe's. It's hard to find stuff. And then when you find something, you're like, what the heck is this doing here?
So if anyone from Lowe's,
specific example, but that usually
listening.
I'll say this much. I usually have to look it up on Lowe's website when I need to find something. But Home Depot, I can pretty much figure it out. Also, all the stores are more the same. Home Depots versus Lowe's. I feel like Lowe's have a little bit more variety between store to store of how they decide to organize their store.
Now, where do you kind of sit with your, we grew up in Phoenix. So you grew up in Pottstown, I grew up in Phoenixville. I remember there was a place called Shelley's Lumber Yard. Now, where do you stand on kind of your mom and pop? I don't know if you consider Ace Hardware or True Value. Where do you stand on those hardware stores?
Ace Hardware just like bought up all the mom and pops, I think. That's kind of what happened.
Oh, really?
Ace Hardware is nice. I mean, if you go to those smaller home improvement stores, the people who work there actually know what's in their store, and if you tell them what you're trying to do, they're usually pretty helpful. When if you talk to somebody at Home Depot or Lowe's, I mean, man, they usually, I don't know, not very helpful.
Doing a Google search, quick ChatGPT search.
I mean, I don't want to say they're not helpful, and some of them are pretty good, but it's hard to find them for one, and then no one's really willing to help. And I've had some good luck.
Certainly can't say that about the kitchen design section at Lowe's. I know that much.
Like, I'll say this much. If you go in and you have a certain type of fitting or some kind of contraption that you built and put together, and you go to an Ace Hardware and you're like, I need to make another one of these, they'll take you into the hardware and get you like, oh, you need this, this, and this, and you'll be good to go. If you go to Home Depot, I've had luck, but then sometimes they're like, I don't know what that is. And then you're kind of like just staring at the wall of all these different fittings, and you're like, I have no clue where to start.
Well, it's just a big box retailer problem, not so much a hardware store specific. You know, the bigger the store, they'll more likely just tell you where something is. They won't take you there. You're not really as invested.
Well, don't ask me the
Just
question
a
if you
number.
don't like my answer, John.
I like your answer. I'm agreeing with you. I'm adding the flip side of the coin to the response.
Let's go. So I guess that's all that we really have to talk about. That whole did you hear about the follow up to the with the whole J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar rap battle?
No.
Well, J. Cole, a couple days after we recorded the last podcast, J. Cole came out and kind of said like, "Oh, I don't know what I was doing, man. I was just goofing," and then like took the song off of Apple Music and like totally backed off of his diss.
You think someone had a talking with him?
I don't know what happened, but that was it.
A stern talking that might have involved broken kneecaps with lead pipes.
I don't think so. I don't know what that would. I don't know.
Anyway, yeah. Otherwise, just looking forward to doing another one of these, and yeah.
I think so. What we decided, we're going to stick to doing a. I kind of like the This Week in History. Kind of gives it open to like kind of just delve into different topics and not really pigeonhole us into talking about one thing for too long, like how you wanted to do 52 cards of founding fathers.
Well, I think my excitement for the idea was tempered a little bit. Again, once we found out that Mr. Senties had already done that, I think I was a little more, okay. I don't know if it's going to have enough steam. So
I am surprised you didn't Google to make sure of that, but whatever. We won't get too into that. So anyway, we wanted to stick to doing some This Week in History. So what we're going to do that we did differently that we didn't do last time is, by the time this airs, this should be airing on Thursday, April 26th.
shouldn't it be the following Thursday?
No, so we're gonna do with this. This is gonna air the 26th, and then we're gonna pick stuff from the upcoming week, so that you guys can kind of have the what I'm thinking is what everybody wants to do when they're at work. They want to, when you show up to work one day, you're like, oh, hey, it's April 29th. Hey, do you know what happened on April 29th? And then you can kind of, really impress the bosses or the coworkers by seeing by talking about how much you know about history. Everybody wants to do that.
Yeah. You could just do the kind of quick pub trivia question of the day. Get all your coworkers excited.
Fans, if I want to give the fans any kind of advice when they're going to do this, is just kind of talk about it like off the cuff, like if you're at work and you're like, oh, what day is it again today? And then if someone tells you, and then you say like, oh, you know what happened on that day, and we're going to give you, John and I are going to give you two pretty good factoids or pretty good stories that would really blow the roof off of the joint when you talk about this at work or at church or at, I don't know, even at the grocery store. Even at the grocery store,
Home Depot.
I know no one writes checks anymore, but say you were writing a check and you're like asking the cashier, like, hey, what day is it? And then they tell you, and then, hey, blurt this out.
Try to sneakily like weave it into the conversation if you can. Oh, I'm feeling a lot like, so and so, and on this date in 1762. You know what I mean? And then they'd be like, no, I don't, and then lay it on them.
Yeah.
Then lecture them.
Or
with the
you could
facts.
act like they're dumb for not knowing it. Be like,
Yeah.
oh wow, it's that day. You know what happened on today? And they're like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And then you'd be like, oh, everybody knows this, and then say that. And then when they ask you where you heard of it, make sure you tell them the Nailing History podcasts and like, share, and subscribe.
Tell them that we're all listed on all platforms. Except
Most
Google,
platforms.
except Google Podcast. But yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what we'll stick with that for a little bit.
So we're going to stick to that. Then we have a little bit to talk about afterwards, but we're going to try to keep it short and sweet, which we don't do. So we'll see how that goes.
Do not.
So I'll go first because, John, yours is, so we know what each other's going to talk about. And I picked one that's not as nuanced as John's is. John's is pretty.
We made a movie about it, multiple movies and books, and
Yeah, well, hold your horses.
Go
So
ahead.
I'll just get talking because I can't seem to get out of this time period in history. I don't know. It's just there were a couple things that I thought about picking, and I just figured I'd start with I'll just go with the old classic. On April 30th, 1803, France concluded negotiations with the United States for the Louisiana Purchase.
dang, that's big time. That's a big time date. That is.
It's a pretty. It's big enough. I didn't know. I would have never. What? It was a big purchase. I'll tell you that much.
Big time purchase. Possibly unconstitutional purchase, but big time.
Yeah. So I'll just go through. I'll really quickly talk about it because I don't want to bore people like I did about the first veto from George Washington, which is apparently boring. This is a little bit more exciting, but just a little. So the Louisiana Territory makes up the area of the United States, modern day United States, between Mississippi and the Rocky Mountains, except for Texas and part of New Mexico. And early in the 17th century, France started settling around the Mississippi Valley, and by the 18th century, they actually controlled more land in the modern day U.S. than any other European power. So they originally had controlled like the whole area from New Orleans. So you figure the point in New Orleans, northeast all the way up to the Great Lakes, and northwest up to Montana. It's a huge slice of the American pie, as you could say.
Big part.
So then during the French and Indian War, France gave Spain most of their territory, and the remainder went to Britain as part of the treaty of the war of the French and Indian War, the 7 years war, for as you would consider it, over in Europe. And then in 1801, Spain secretly gave the land back to France, and that freaked the U.S. out because the U.S. was like, oh man, this guy Napoleon is going to come in and he's going to start trolling up the Mississippi. He's going to take not let us use the port of New Orleans, and he's going to just dominate the Mississippi River and the access to the Gulf of Mexico, which was a huge problem for the U.S. because they were westward expanding up in like the Ohio's areas, and they really depended on the Mississippi for like commerce and trade,
right,
to get to the the Gulf of Mexico. So it was like a pretty big issue when the U.S. found out that Spain gave France back the territory. So Thomas Jefferson sent this guy Robert Livingston. Well, he was the U.S. minister to France, but he sent little Jemmy James Madison up there to make a deal to try to purchase New Orleans. And apparently, by the time little Jemmy even showed up in France, they were already talking about buying the whole territory. So little Jemmy was sent with the authority to spend $10 million to acquire New Orleans and or all parts of Florida. So just New Orleans and some of Florida. And then, but France was but then by the time he got there, France was already like, we'll sell you the whole thing for $22 million. So you figure that's a huge bargain.
That's big bargain.
But then $22 million, they chipped them down a little bit, got them down to $15 million, and still a little bit more than little Jemmy was able to spend, but he still he got it done for $15 million. That was the agreed price. So for 828,000 square miles of land, that is 3 cents an acre. That's
3 cents in 1803 dollars.
I'd have to do them. Do you want me to crunch more math?
No, you go ahead. No, I'll find that out.
I think it's probably an 18 whatever dollars. Still pretty cheap if you think about it.
Price compares. Yeah, that's great deal.
So anyway, so what John was saying, there was a little bit of an issue with the constitutionality of the purchase. Thomas Jefferson, who was a very strict literal view of the Constitution, knew that the Constitution didn't specifically spell out the ability to buy property from foreign governments. So the fact that it wasn't listed in the Constitution, Jefferson believed that he didn't have the power to do so because the Constitution is supposed to state what you can do. Right?
I think it's a treaty, no? It has to be sold through a treaty, which has to go through Congress.
Well, that's
like, do two guys who go and negotiate, do they have such authority? Like, does Congress have to be more involved? I think it was, that's what he was conflicting.
But then,
Treaty
but he didn't want to lose the deal. So Jefferson thought maybe an amendment to the Constitution was
right.
in order to do this, but he didn't want to wait and lose the deal. So he wrote to your boy, John Dickinson, in the meantime, we must ratify and pay our money as we have treated for a thing beyond the Constitution and rely on the nation to sanction an act done for its great good without its previous authority. So he basically said, probably not constitutional, but we're going to do it anyway because this is good for the country. He felt that it was a good thing for the country to expand. The Federalists were against it. They did not want it. They did not want the purchase to go through and used the constitutionality as an argument for it not to go through. Alexander Hamilton was not a fan. He thought it was he thought that it would just dissolve the government. I guess the larger the area, the harder for the government to be able to reign over and keep power over the people.
Yeah.
And then he also claimed that it was unnecessary. He said that no one was going to go west of the Mississippi and won't be inhabited for centuries to come. So a real swing and a miss by Alexander Hamilton on that one.
Whoops.
Centuries. What a bozo.
Whoops.
They also, Federalists were primarily in the northern states, and they feared that it would impact the balance of power between slave states and free states.
Yeah.
More slave states would have expanded into this area, and that would have caused an imbalance in power. At the end of the day, the Senate the debate lasted 2 days. They passed it 24-7. Treaty was signed on October 31st, 1803, because it's considered Thomas Jefferson's most notable achievement. And then 9 years after the purchase, exactly 9 years to the day after the purchase, on April 30th, 1912, the first state that carved from the territory, Louisiana, was admitted to the Union as the 18th state. It's a little 2-for-1.
Yeah, it's a 2-for-1er for sure.
I hope I didn't bore everybody. That they get a little. I got a little bit. I tried to be quick with it.
Yeah, I'm looking
I
at.
didn't want to miss important stuff like that it's 3 cents an acre.
So we're just doing one each.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I feel like this is going to be kind of boring for people. Not on this day, on the day I'm about to say. So on April 28th of 1789, and 2 days before our first president was inaugurated, George Washington, on April 28th, 1789, you had the Mutiny on the Bounty, which was a British ship, part of the Royal Navy, which was captained at the time by a Lieutenant William Bligh, who was a real piece of work. I'm not going to...
He was the worst.
Wow.
Everybody hated this dude.
Short-tempered, but just...
blamed everybody for everything, it seemed like. I heard one story that on their way to this part of the voyage, there were like 2 wheels of cheese missing in the brig, and he's like, "Who took my cheese?" And the one guy's like, "Dude, don't you remember when we were at the port, we unloaded that and put it in your house?" And he's like, gets mad about being wrong then, right?
Yeah, he's a real... He's not a real one for sure.
Captain Bligh.
Well, apparently, I was doing research for this. So he was technically a lieutenant. Now he was a captain of the ship, but he was not a captain in rank in the Royal Navy. So that really chapped him. He wanted a promotion
because everyone hated him. Yeah.
So he was on paper
said,
lieutenant,
do this,
captain of the ship.
And they were like, "Well, do this, and then maybe we'll talk."
Yeah,
do this. So the voyage was. I kind of cut you off.
No, you're fine. So anyway, so Mutiny on the Bounty, just for a little context. So like I said, so 2 days after this event, George Washington became president. So now we're 6 years removed from the end of the American Revolution. The British have a year before this, or a year and 3 months, they've just started a penal colony in New South Wales and in Australia. Started sending convicts over there. So to kind of give you a state of the world, the British are kind of sending ships everywhere, finding ways to maintain their, their markets and what have you. And so what this particular mission, so the HMS Bounty and Bligh were on their way, set out to go to Tahiti to bring back, to find and bring back breadfruit, which is a plant that grows specifically in the South Pacific.
That tastes like bread. I'd love to try that.
Yeah, it looks interesting.
That would be weird, man.
Yeah, it's a weird looking fruit, super spiky. I mean, it looks like a South Pacific fruit. It's like kind of just very exotic looking, but apparently super nutrient dense and very grows very easily in tropical weather. And so basically they were sent by the British government to go find the breadfruit and then bring it back to the Caribbean to be able to plant it there to feed the slave populations that were working in plantations in the Caribbean. That's kind of just the background for it. So basically when they did get to Tahiti, I think in like December of 1788, and then so they were basically there for 5 months, and the crew, I mean, they just started lounging. They were just having a great time, living that chill,
They docked in Tahiti, and they loved the culture down there.
They hung out with the women. They didn't see any women in months. They were hanging out with them. They were eating good, eating that breadfruit.
Can I give a quote? Can I give a quote?
Please.
From a gentleman named Ray Maloney, who was a bounty historian. He said that when they landed aboard, it was as if a sailor's sexual fantasy had come to life. That's Big Ray Maloney.
Did you watch the same thing I did?
Did you?
So I watched. So in preparation for this, not only using ChatGPT, but I did a little.
Watch the Arthur Kent speaking facts on the history's mysteries.
Yes. My favorite part of that was the guy basically Bligh was a piece of work. Nobody kind of liked him, but they were on mission. They got it done. They were in Tahiti for 5 months. They left Tahiti. The crew were slack as hell. These guys had been basically, just lounging about for the past 5 months for all intents and purposes, not up to shape that you need to be to crew, a brig, a huge ship, and take your loot, halfway around the world. These guys just weren't ready for that. So Bligh was all angry and upset. And so this guy, Fletcher Christian, who was kind of acted like for a little while of his life, he was like a son to Bligh. He and a number of the crew just kind of get fed up. Just get over it. Guy, Bligh just goes
I think Fletcher Christian actually fell in love with the native too.
Yeah, like he didn't want to go. Like none of them wanted to leave. Up. And like Matt said, with these cheese wheels, like that was just the tip of the iceberg. But by the time they left Tahiti, very shortly after, like weeks after, I mean, Bligh was just unbearable, according to Mr. Christian. And so then, they basically, Christian took over the ship, but it wasn't a full ship mutiny. Like only like 10 guys were in on it, but the rest of the crew was like, yeah, whatever.
12.
They were like, yeah, whatever. We'll just like go along with it. And so they put Bligh and 18 other adults on a rowboat, and they just cast them ashore and said, see you later. And basically somehow Bligh survived after going.
Well, no. So he shows up at this island. I don't know what island it is, like Tafuga or something, like an island that was close by. They were like chartered the seas, and they're like, oh, a land, and they get ashore, and they show up, and the natives notice that they don't have any weapons or anything. So the natives just like completely like beat him up and chased him back off the island. Killed one of the guys, I think. That's pretty.
He had
funny.
a real, but he eventually ended up in Timor somehow, and ended up then back in London, and then,
dude, he went like how many miles did they say he went
3,000
in the rowboat,
3,500 nautical miles to reach safety
in a rowboat,
Timor. I don't know what
they
did
were
say.
Eating. The one, Gavin, did you see Big Gavin Kennedy, the author of Captain Bligh? What he had to say? He was a real stand-up guy.
I was listening to it on my walk. I actually wasn't watching. So.
Oh, you missed it.
What did he say?
He said it was one of the most significant sea voyages of all time, which is actually probably pretty true. That's insane.
Modern sea voyages, yeah.
18 dudes just like duding it up on a rowboat and trying to survive on rations
to make it. Yeah. And so then when he got back to London, he had to write a story so that like he could get out in front of the mutineers to tell his side of the story so that people didn't come and, because by this point, like I said, before he even got on the boat, he wasn't able to get his promotion to captain. So already the British Admiralty kind of already looked down on this guy. Comes back and he's basically having to, dude, where's your boat? Where's your ship? What's going on here? And so he had to like explain.
Where's my boat?
He had to justify it, and unfortunately, the mutineers most of the mutineers that were left on the boat did not meet a very nice fate. I think I saw somewhere that most of them were dead within 5 years. Either died on an island or attacked.
Some of them stayed. Some of them. So they went. So then the people who stole the ship, the mutineers, the mutineers, they turned around. They didn't want to go back to Tahiti because they knew that the British found them, they'd get in trouble. But they did anyway because they didn't know where else to go. So they went there, and like. Out of like I think there were 16 of them on the ship. Of those 16, like all but 8 stayed there. And then the other 8, they went to another island. And then they started like their own colony over there. And it sounded like things were going pretty well. I think people died from like disease and stuff. I think most of them died from disease except, oh wait, no. Then the when they got to that island, they were the whites who landed on shore. They started treating the natives as servants, and then there was a civil war on that island, and then, like most of them died
that way.
They think that's how they think that's how Fletcher Christian died. But a lot of the people who still live on that island, what's the island called? It starts with a P.
Pitcairn.
Mm-hmm. A lot of those people can trace their lineage back to those settlers, I think.
So I've read somewhere like one guy ended up living for like 50 years, had kids, and like one guy managed to just eke it out for a while. So Bligh somehow miraculously ends up captaining another ship to go back to Tahiti to get the breadfruit. And so he does it again. I don't know who's running that show at the Admiralty to give him another job, but they said, well,
he sweet talked him. He was like, because there were no other survivor. Like he was the only one that showed, but so he was the only one giving the word on what happened. So he gave some mumbo jumbo story about how like he was doing everything right and they just took his ship, but in reality he was just being a jerk.
Yeah, and he got there. He got to tell a story for us. He was still the commanding officer of the vessel, so it's like they're gonna. I mean, I guess by default they have to believe him first. If there's no other evidence, they're just gonna take the word of a quote gentleman, unquote. So, but then so he ended up going back to get the breadfruit. And then, like, only a few years later, he was involved in another mutiny somewhere else. And then
he was involved in another mutiny.
And then he was a part of Australia's only coup d'etat, only rebellion, which was he was basically in New South Wales. It's the governor of New South Wales, which is the penal colony in Australia at the time. Basically sent and tasked to like put a clamp down on their rum trade. There was a group of soldiers who were, running rum kind of illegally and at crazy prices. And so they basically just kicked him out. So this guy, he's somehow managed to live a full life, though. He ended up dying in England. I don't know how he wasn't killed along the way, like all these other,
I don't know how he just didn't die. I mean, dude, he must have been a beast on the seas, man.
Yeah.
You ever see the movie?
I've watched a few minutes of it today. Like the scene where the mutiny happens. I mean, it's from like the 60s, so.
Dude, it should be like a new movie.
Like, that would be a good new movie they could make.
That would be a really
I don't know how,
like,
Hollywood hasn't picked that up yet. And, like, I mean, they've kind of done. I mean, Master and Commander. It's a good kind of in that time period, but, like, this particular one could be. It's a ready-made.
It's like a real-life Jack Sparrow movie.
But you can't. I feel like it'd be hard because, like, he's not really the hero type because he was kind of an ass. And
I won't say he would be the protagonist.
Yeah.
It'd be
like an anti-hero movie. Like no one would be the hero. It's like kind of because this Fletcher Christian guy doesn't strike me as
maybe
like
maybe a native would be a hero. You could add some fiction to it.
Yeah, it could be like a Western though. It's like no one's a hero. Some Westerns like nobody's ever the hero. It's just like everyone. It's just the nature of the life. And I feel like being in the open seas would be like that. It's like,
Who do you think would be good to play Bly?
kind of looking at the guy, trying to find someone in for his likeness.
Well, not even just the likeness, like his personality.
Paul Giamatti,
I was just
100%. Just thinking of him and John Adams. I'm like, he could totally be this guy who's just up everyone's ass like John Adams, and just like, dude, you're out of here. Put you on the boat.
And then like who would be Who would be Christian Fletcher Christian?
Trying to think of who like a newer actor.
But like Channing Tatum.
These the portraits of him. He's a pretty good looking guy. So I mean, maybe Channing Tatum.
Channing Tatum.
Probably a little too
Channing.
big. Probably a little
Channing.
too.
Do you know who he is?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Okay. You say Shannon Tatum?
Am I thinking of that Channing Frye basketball player? I don't know. That seems like a weird cast to me. Someone with stronger bone structure, stronger jawline, cheekbones.
John Hamm?
He's too old. That'd be a younger guy. They'd probably cast that guy from Dune. Probably try to make him
Timothy Chalamet.
Look a little more rugged. I mean, I guess he's
What about Zac Efron?
the bee's knees now for everyone. No,
Yeah.
so it'd be a good one though. The Rock is one of the natives. Yeah.
No, it would be Jason Momoa would be one of the natives for sure.
Yeah.
Do you know who he is?
I do know who he is. He'd be
Okay.
good, and he'd be good. He'd be a good like chief.
What a hunk.
Heartthrob. So that's that. Yeah, this week. I had 2 honorable mentions.
It's a bit of a dry week.
There's a lot. No. Well, there's 2. I'll give you a quick 2 for 1. Honorable mentions real quick. We won't get into the whole details, but they think one led it to the other, if anyone was ever curious. So in 1945, Mussolini was killed. So he was the leader of fascist Italy from 1922 until 1943. So he was killed on the morning of April 28th, 1945 by Italian partisan forces. And what's significant about that isn't that not just that he was picked up and killed by them, is that it was how kind of grotesque it was. And they say that word got to Hitler that he was the manner in which Mussolini was killed. That word had gotten to Hitler when he was in his bunker about that. And they say that Hitler took care to make sure that when he killed himself, that his body would be immediately burned, so that he couldn't be ridiculed. And so what happened? Yeah, so Mussolini was killed by partisans. They basically took his body and his mistress. They killed both of them at the same time, put them, I think, like 7 bullets in both of them, submachine gun. They drove them to a square in Milan and basically just dumped their bodies in the middle of this plaza. So like all the public was there. And then a mob kind of started forming, and people were like peeing on him and like throwing food on him and like spitting on him and like kicking his face in. I mean, it was bad. I mean, there's some, it's a PG podcast, but if you just go on like even on the Wikipedia page, it showed like his body and the examiners.
Did they see his dingling?
Probably, but not in the pictures they have.
That's probably what Hitler was worried about.
Yeah.
That would be my guess.
Yeah. So
I don't want them to see.
Can't see that. Look at that.
No.
So like, yeah, so Mussolini and his mistress, her name doesn't come to me right now, but yeah, so there they are getting destroyed. And then, then I think some people are like, well, we'll hang him up to embarrass him that much more. And so we'll string him up. And so he and his mistress are hung by their feet on like a Standard Oil, like skeleton of like a gas station. Like imagine like a gas station that, it's just the metal wire that they could be like, he's hanging down from. And so they said that, they basically had to do that because if they didn't, the mob would have torn them apart. And it's just like kind of all bloated and really kind of nasty, kind of a rough way to go.
How long was he dead before they got him to the square?
I think it was all the same day. So he was killed in the morning, and then later that day, his bodies were just dumped because back when he was, and the reason for they did it that way, the partisans did that was because when he was the leader, fascists and communists hated one another. Apparently, he'd done that to some communists, and they were just dumped in, plazas to say like this is what communism will do, and we need to we need to get rid of it. And so that was kind of them, payback. So yeah, but yeah, that happened, and then like 2 days later, Hitler died. He killed himself, and then like he was burned immediately. But they say that word had gotten to him that how Mussolini
crazy,
died,
dude.
and was like, he's like, I ain't happening to me. I don't want to be on
That's
display.
pretty nuts.
Yeah.
I bet that's what happened for sure. He didn't want them to see his little dinghy.
I mean, I wonder. I don't know how much like communication, if it happened that quickly. So Hitler died on April 30th. So Hitler died 2 days later, killed himself in the bunker. So I wonder how that information could have gotten to him that quickly.
Oh, dude.
I mean,
they
I
could have
guess-
gotten it there.
Yeah.
They had airplanes.
No, I know, but
We're not
I mean,
talking
they have, like,
horseback.
Wi-Fi. I don't know, but
They didn't have Wi-Fi. You barely have Wi-Fi
I
where
barely
you
have
live.
Wi-Fi. But yeah, so there's that's a little two for
Wow,
one.
that's a good one,
Quick
man.
2 for 1.
I didn't know they dumped him. Well,
Yeah, it was
honestly, I
pretty
didn't even know
bad.
Mussolini got killed.
Well, the thing, so he when the Americans landed in Sicily and then came up the peninsula of Italy, like he kind of like surrendered more or less. He's like, all right, I'm tapping out. And then so then the Germans
Never
had to
mind.
come in and take over. Like the Germans had to come in and put in a puppet state in northern Italy because the Americans had basically taken over all of southern Italy. And Hitler put in a puppet state. And like, well, you still need to be the head of this government. So he was basically a puppet leader for like a year and a half. And so by the time they got him, like it was his back was against the wall, literally. And then
They shot him.
they were like trying to leave, and I think he might have been in disguise, and then they weren't sure if it was him, but then they were able to work out that it was, and so then they just lit him up.
They shot him.
And then I think Stalin was probably the only one didn't die as weird of a way, but also not very good movie. I'm never curious. The Death of Stalin. If you like seeing how totalitarian leaders die.
Let's stick to this week in history. Well, there you go. I mean, if there isn't anything better than if you were at work and you were asking, you were talking like on April 28th when you're at work, just be like, hey, you guys know how Mussolini died? And did you know that it led to how Adolf Hitler died? You'd be king of the office for the day. You'd be king of the office for the day. We're just trying to help you guys out with that.
We just want to do that. Do you have any other honorable mentions?
No, I don't. Like you mentioned, Georgie Washington getting inaugurated.
Yeah. Well, shout out
That
to all.
must have been a scene, dude, because that was in Philadelphia, right?
Yeah.
That must have been a scene.
You know who wasn't there?
Alexander Hamilton.
Lieutenant William Bligh. Almost guarantee it.
Almost.
Maybe that's why he was sailing so hard. He wanted to, he got wind that the Americans had a new president.
So imagine that what was going on like at the same time. Man, they just whisked him off to sea. Wow.
How long would it take for Bligh to reach America in the boat he was cast off in?
Dude, would you rather be stranded at sea or lost in space?
Like in a vessel that you could live in, or even if
Well, you'll run out of oxygen.
in space, yeah. I'd say probably lost in space.
Really?
Assuming it's a part of
Better
space where you can
view.
like see Earth, maybe see the planets.
That
Although
would
I
be
think
cool.
in it, maybe it's mostly just dark. I think if you're up there, I don't know if you can even see anything if the sun's not behind you.
Dude. I don't know.
Well, here.
The thing I would be scared about being lost at sea would be like getting eaten by a shark. But the benefit is you could go fishing off of the boat.
Yeah, I guess you could possible sustenance. Can't drink
I
the
don't know
water.
how do you desalinate the water? I mean, now if you got lost at sea, you'd probably have a survival kit that would have a desalinator.
Yeah, I don't know how long that lasts for. If it's
I guess you harvest the rainwater.
yeah, I think that'd be your first point. I don't think desalinating on any scale would really be possible.
What do you mean?
I don't know. Like, I don't know. Did you just make that? Do they have desalinating kits, like personal
Yeah.
first aid kits? I didn't know that. Okay.
I assume. I don't know. I think they mentioned it in Open Water 3 last week.
That hotbed of factual information. So, assuming a direct route.
Desalination is a process that takes away mineral components from saline water.
Do you want to hear what ChatGPT said about Bly making it to Philadelphia to see the inauguration? Or it was in New York anyway.
Okay, how long would it take him to get there?
10,000 nautical miles from Timor to Philadelphia via the Panama Canal, which did not exist in 1789.
Oh, so they're going that way.
He'd go.
So they would have to go all the way around the tip.
That would be chilly. That would be tough.
You could do it. Bly could do it.
Get that
His men would hate
as
him.
long as he had enough breadfruit. Oh, anything's possible.
Is that what they were eating, you
No,
think?
I don't know what they were. In that History Channel video, Matt and I both
just
just
showing
happened
bread.
to watch. I think I don't know what they were eating.
Dude, I bet they ate one of I bet one of them got eaten. People.
Probably a safe bet, and he just kept that out of his story.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's this week in history.
It looks like you can desalinate water by using evaporation and condensation. There's like a there's a cool little device that you could throw out into the water.
Interesting. Yeah, because I would think that's how I know how you could get salt. Yeah, you just put a shallow pool of water and eventually it'll. But how do you capture that water vapor?
It's got a little hood on it.
That captures
cool.
the vapor.
Yeah.
And then it recondenses and then it kind of condenses.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's
there
great.
you go.
Well, everyone,
so does that fix your answer or no?
it's perfect. No, I guess still
You'd rather
space.
get lost in space.
I might have,
But
some,
like, if you're lost in space, you have no chance of getting rescued. If you're lost at sea, you never know.
I mean,
I'd rather have that hope.
Wasn't Apollo 13 kind of lost in space?
No, they knew where they were. They were in
No.
constant communicado. I'm saying like
Yeah,
lost in space, like no communication.
But that's my only shot of maybe going to another dimension, maybe in a black hole. See it from the other side. See what happens when I get to the other side. You don't know. Isn't it crazy that I've heard that we still? I think one of the crazy. We know less about the deepest of the deep seas than we do about space.
I believe that. Dude, deep sea is crazy.
Yeah. I saw a movie this past week that basically hypothesized that under the mantle of the Earth is another tropical world.
Was it the Meg?
No, it was it was the Godzilla King Kong movie. There's like sub-Earth, and then from that you go into sub-Earth, and then like each layer down into the
Do you
under
think
the crust.
that's real?
It's like another world.
Because it was in that movie?
I don't know, maybe.
Do you just think everything is like factual or historical that you watch?
You think I went to the Godzilla versus Kong movie thinking it was a historical narrative?
I think yes. Mostly.
Okay. Yeah.
Which leads us to our next point. We both watched Gangs of New York.
Yeah. I was told I need to laugh more, so I do laugh, people. So yeah, we watched Gangs of New York. Wasn't laughing that much during it. Wasn't really a tummy rumbler, if you know what I mean.
Dude, it was pretty good. I think I had seen it before, but I didn't remember. I always get that confused with There Will Be Blood. Because they're both Daniel Day-Lewis films.
DDL for short, for any of our fans. It was good. It was good.
What did you think was factual about that one that you liked? About Gangs in New York?
About Gangs in New York? I mean, they did a good enough job to have at least some characters, like factual characters, like Boss Tweed, Now, exactly what he did in the movie versus real life, I can't totally say.
Who was that in the movie?
That was the guy who was like when he's at the boat and like all the Irish are coming off the boat and then they're basically lining them up to get back on another boat to go fight for the Union.
Yeah.
Not knowing not
Dude,
knowing at
that's
all what was
insane.
going on.
It's like, oh, hey, welcome to America. Here, sign up for sign up for the army, and your family will be citizens.
Which was part of the contention, which was part of the reason why. So the one of the, I guess the main factual thing was the 1863 draft riot. So in New York,
I had never heard of that before.
Yeah, and so and then from there they kind of spliced the things. The timelines were kind of off, but like the actual battle between the Dead Rabbits and the Bowery Boys, who Daniel Day-Lewis is. I mean, they do actually mention the Bowery Boys in the movie, but in real life, it was a feud between the Dead Rabbits and the Bowery Boys that happened in 1857. So before the Civil War had started, and then by the time the Civil War came around as well, like that Know Nothing Party was just kind of already disbanded. They really didn't have much because the Republican Party had sort of already kind of taken over.
Well, the Dead Rabbits and the Bowery Boys battle happened in the first part of the film, and then like 10 years had gone by and the Civil War was going, so their timeline was right on that. No?
I didn't see in my research of that there was a fight on the scale which they're talking about that happened in the 1840s, which is when Leo was a kid and Liam Neeson is dad.
Oh, is that when?
Like they kind of have him in between. They kind of did bookends where there was one big fight in 1846, and then there was another big one in 1863, which just so happened to be on the same day as the draft riots. So like the whole city is going up. It's going to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah, it kind of like interrupts the battle.
Yeah, which is kind of like
I would think Leo probably would have lost that. He would have lost that fight if it wasn't for
that's what I was thinking
going off.
And I don't remember thinking that in previous times. I was like, wait, really? Is that how that happened? Like it was just for the fact that like someone shot a cannon off a boat and hit the side of a wall, and then William Cutting, Daniel Day-Lewis's character, got hit by some shrapnel. Like that's kind of crazy. That's how. It's kind of a crappy way. Didn't really.
Yeah, because like they were kind of making it like it was a revenge thing, and kind of making it seem like how Daniel Day-Lewis's character had redeemed himself because Liam Neeson's character beat him up before the film started, and then let him live so that he could walk around in shame. And then when he got better, he like killed Liam Neeson's for honor.
Yeah.
And they kind of set the stage that like Leo was going to be doing the same thing. He got beat up by Daniel Day-Lewis, and then Daniel Day-Lewis he cut his face so that he would have a mark and everyone would know that he got his butt kicked. But then Leo was going to come back and fight him, and then at the end of the day, Leo didn't really get his revenge. So I don't know if that was supposed to be like a happy ending or not.
And I don't know if they got on that ship to California. I don't know if her ticket was still accepted. Maybe she missed the boat.
Cameron Diaz?
She got punched in the face like on her way to get to the boat.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Maybe
she picked a bad day to try to skip town, to say that much.
Yeah.
Unfortunate events.
I will say that, I mean, it was cool that they had some of that historical stuff. I mean, I like the time period and all that. But I mean, the context of, I feel like the draft riots, like having that as a backdrop was like, it seemed a little too convenient and
unnecessary.
I kind of wish they gave more background as to why. So in part, like they don't really tell you why kind of blacks are being specifically targeted. I mean, I guess when you say, okay, it's a 19th century movie and you've got there's former slaves or free slaves or free people, like people are going to kind of think, okay, well, there's going to be that racism there, but they didn't really specifically, like the Irish kind of led these draft riots. Like there was different ethnic groups, but primarily it was like more or less newly arrived Irish Catholics who were the ones that were going to be impacted by this draft. And so one thing they don't tell you in the movie is that free blacks couldn't serve in the Union Army because they couldn't be U.S. citizens after following the Dred Scott decision. So a lot of the Irish were upset with that. One, they didn't have the $300, and they do talk about this in the movie. They didn't have the $300 to communicate their to not have to serve. So that was something only the wealthy could afford.
I think I looked up how much that was. It was like a pretty substantial amount of money.
It's like $7,000 or $8,000 in today's dollars. Yeah, it's a lot. And for poor Irish who couldn't afford it. So the underlying reason why the Irish were kind of rioting against the draft offices and all the, and then kind of just throwing the city to the flames was because, like they saw it as like, wait a minute, we just showed up and like we didn't know, I guess, in a way by becoming U.S. citizens that you were going to send our sons off to war. Meanwhile, you have free blacks like who are, I guess, they're fighting for now, having to go fight to end slavery. Because by that point, the Emancipation Proclamation had already come in and Gettysburg had just ended. And so these new Irish who have no connection to the country.
Was it that blacks couldn't be? Was it that freed African Americans couldn't fight in the army, or was it that they weren't eligible to be drafted into the army?
They weren't eligible for the draft, at least that draft, because they weren't U.S. citizens. So what was happening with the Irish would come.
They were still able to enlist into the army.
And they did. There were black units. I don't know what's that movie Glory. I don't know what year they fight though. That might have happened later in the war though. When did they fight? Like by the end of it, they were making black units. But at the very least, like free blacks in the North were not being drafted. They were not impacted by the draft. And so the Irish said, hey, like we're having to fight a war to free the free slaves and we're going to send our sons off to war to be killed. And we don't have the money to buy our way out of it. So it's a rich man's war, poor man's fight kind of deal.
Well, and the reason that they were coming over here was because they were getting murdered by the British Empire.
Yeah. Oh, and another thing was they didn't want to fight to end slavery because then they would have to be competing with then those free blacks from the South might come up to the North and then they would have competition in the labor market. So the Irish really had no incentive to fight to have slavery, to fight to have an end to slavery, at least in their minds. Like they didn't want to have to compete with blacks for, labor, dockyards and all that stuff. So I wish the movie kind of touched on that a little bit. I mean, it just kind of showed like, okay, people are going after like these black, but they didn't really kind of talk about that. But I don't know. But otherwise, like it was a well done movie.
How about when he told Leo the story of killing his dad? That was intense.
And Johnny telling him, dude. I guess Johnny snitches. Johnny proved the old idiom: snitches do get stitches.
Snitches get serious. He got stitches, but he got stitches from the people that he snitched to.
Yeah, exactly.
That sucks.
He made his own bed. If he never outed Leo as being the son of the guy he killed, maybe the guy could have skipped town a little earlier. He knew stuff was going to go down. Bill the Butcher might be dead. Might have killed him.
Yeah.
So
that's what you got.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys should watch that film if you haven't seen it in a while. I think most people have seen that movie.
Yeah. So
that's interesting. I thought they did a pretty cool job with it. I don't know much about the era, but I thought it was cool.
I know. You're an 18th century kind of guy.
I kind of like the ending where they showed the grave. They got the Liam Neeson's and Daniel Day-Lewis got buried next to each other.
Yeah.
And they kind of like made this thing like we're all going to be forgotten at some point. All this is going to be forgotten, and then they kind of show how the grave site got overgrown and the city got built up. I wonder what Tom Dodd would have thought.
I don't know. Probably still learning to read and write.
Making rope up in
getting his eats. What is war? What is war? The Civil War. We don't need the war. I'm here for your eats. I get you.
You're a bastard.
They should have. If there's gonna be pick a war and we're gonna cast Al Pacino to it, I'd say the Civil War would probably be a better casting move than the Revolutionary War. I don't. It just seems so out of place.
He would have been great in this movie.
In Gangs of New York.
Yeah,
I think so. Because by that point, like there's like ethnic groups that like okay, it's believable that an Al Pacino could be floating around somewhere.
Well, that's it for this episode.
That's it.
All right. So what did we do? What did we do today? We went through.
I don't even know.
We went through the Louisiana Purchase, the mutiny on the Bounty. We learned how Hitler was scared for people to see his wee-wee when he got killed.
Because of what happened to Mussolini.
Because Mussolini had And we talked a little Bowery Boys talk. Pretty good episode.
Yeah. I'm a little off. I'll be honest, fans. I'm sorry if I feel off. This whole technical business before really put me in a way. So we better next. I'll be better next week.
You always let things get to you, dude.
I know. I gotta let things just roll off my shoulder.
We're ready to go.
Just let it slide.
All right. Well, make sure that you guys talk about these things at work next week. See you on the next one.
See you guys.
And we say bye-bye.